Welcome back to the Philbrook Football Podcast. I am joined by yours truly, Cameron. Who? I'm sorry. You might recognize him as D. Magoofus. Full name Doofus space Magoofus.
Hi.
I'm Doofus Magoofus.
Oh God. Okay. Anyways, we'll just get into it. So this is going to be our podcast that recaps the wild card weekend. We'll talk about our prediction for the divisional round next week. Just to kind of go over the games, normally I just kind of go over the scores, and we just blow through them, and we don't really talk about the games. But since there's not very many games, we can kind of take a little bit of time to talk about each game and how it went, that kind of stuff. So
yeah, with the lack of games, we can just kind of do. We can kind of do our analysis kind of as we go because there's only 4 games that happened. So
yeah. So the first game I have, it was the AFC wildcard matchup between the Titans and the Chiefs. Titans win 22-21 behind some heroics from Marcus Mariota.
And Derrick Henry.
Chugging along doing his thing. I was really impressed with Mariota in this game. He didn't really have a season to remember. Finished with more interceptions than touchdowns, but I mean, there's no denying that dude always plays with the heart. He plays to win the game, and he never gives up. He does the dirty work. I mean, that block on Zombo was just ridiculous.
That block was awesome,
dude. And like the way the lineman came up to him afterwards to congratulate him, like
I was thinking Titans linemen were just freaking out.
Yeah, man. If I was Mariota, I'd be feeling like on top of the world right then. Mm-hmm. Like all these dudes are coming up and telling him like, "Let's go, boy," like, or whatever they're saying. Like, man, good stuff. But yeah, so a good day for the Titans. They came back. They were down 21-3, I think.
Yes,
at halftime.
Mm-hmm.
Chiefs were doing the best they could to try to distract you from the Falcons.
Yeah, no kidding.
28-3 last year.
They even let Mariota throw a pass to himself for a touchdown, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that game was insane.
It was pretty crazy. It was some crazy stuff, man.
The Chiefs, lost in normal Chiefs fashion, or I guess more like normal Andy Reid fashion.
Right.
A lot of questionable play calling. I mean, Kareem Hunt only had with 11 carries, and
he was averaging like 4 yards a carry in that game. So there was no excuse on why he only got 10 carries. That was I don't know what that was, but the Chiefs just threw away their success game plans from the when they actually won during the year and said, let's go back to when we started losing a lot, when we were not running the ball, when we were throwing it 40 times a game and expecting Alex Smith to just carry us with really like 2 good threats in the receiving game, kind of like 2.5 because Albert Wilson's all right, but like you have Tyreek Hill who had like 4 drops in the game, and then Travis Kelce gets knocked out of the game. So then you're still throwing it over and over and over again. And it's like, hello.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you that the reason that this happened was because Andy Reid started calling plays again. When they went on that losing streak, it was because Andy Reid was calling plays really bad. I'm sure you remember that Kareem Hunt wasn't getting very many carries. Mm-hmm. They were trying to run like an air raid, it felt like. It was ridiculous. Really weird. But the offensive coordinator, Nagy,
something like that.
I don't know how to pronounce his name. We'll just call him Nagy. Mr. Nagy over there. He took over play calling duties for the final stretch of the year, and they looked great. They came back to form. In this game, Andy Reid started calling plays again, and look, this is what happens. I mean, you have the leading rusher in the NFL, Kareem Hunt, and you lose Travis Kelce. You're up 21-3 at halftime, and he only got 6 carries after the first quarter.
Yep.
Well, man, that's just ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, losing Kelsey was definitely a big deal for them because I don't know if. I mean, he's there, like you said, he's like their only other receiving threat other than Tyreek Hill.
And when Tyreek Hill is having trouble holding onto the ball, like, where else do you turn to? Like, you turn to your running back that, by the way, led the freaking league in rushing. Like, you have a rookie that led the league in rushing. You know what happened last time they did that happened in the league, which was last year with Ezekiel Elliott. The Cowboys had a slogan of feed Zeke. They said, we have this guy that's really good. Let's just keep giving him the ball and we'll win. Like, why do the Chiefs not understand that? You have Kareem Hunt, who led the league in rushing. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, man, that was really bad. Andy Reid is gonna go down as like a great regular season coach that could never put it together in the playoffs.
Yeah,
just like Marty Schottenheimer with the Chargers. You know, great regular season coach. He's gonna put up 11 to 14 wins a year, and then come playoff time, nothing happens. Yep. So, I was actually kind of surprised that the Chiefs were able to blow a lead like that and let the Titans come back. And it kind of, I mean, it's kind of, I'm sure Titans fans are like ecstatic. They won a playoff game, but Mularkey is going to stay their head coach now. And they struggled all through the regular season and took on a vulnerable Chiefs team and win. I
don't know if this guarantees that he stays their coach, though.
They already said that he will be. The owner already came out and said that Mularkey is going to be their coach. So, I mean, you can't, regardless of who that coach is, you can't fire a coach after taking a team to the playoffs for the first time in how long? I mean, it's kind of hard to do that. So, it'll be okay as long as they get a good offensive coordinator in and let Mariota do his thing. I mean, when Mariota is running that team, running that offense, I mean, that they move the ball. When they're not trying to like force him into this scheme of being like
pro style offense, exotic smash mouth, or whatever the hell he wants to call it, Mularkey, you know, I mean, it's
they need to let Mariota play to his strengths, let him run the ball, let him do his thing. I don't know. It's just terrible to watch him forced into this system that is outdated and not relevant anymore, and two, doesn't play to any of his strengths. Taking snaps under center, doing these drop backs, and it's just, man, put him out in the gun. Get, use some spread formation. I don't know. It's just ridiculous to me, but
yeah. Well, I mean, you're taking a guy that played in a spread high tempo offense and then telling him to do, this like old man style of offense that, kind of died off in like the late 2000s, where it's just like, just don't really do it as much anymore, especially with all these quarterbacks that came in with Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers, Ben Roethlisberger, Tom Brady. I mean, all these quarterbacks that were just like, I'm going to throw it like 40 times a game, like it's not the same NFL as it was before. And
plus the rules have changed to make it easier on receivers.
Exactly. And that's such a huge reason why they've gone to the spread so much more, is because it's like, let's just put 4 guys out there. I'm sure they don't have 4 corners that are all going to have perfect technique that can cover them without pass interference. Like, so you can do that. And when you have a quarterback that flourished in that, like, do what they did with Carson Wentz in Philadelphia and like kind of mold the offense to where it has some of the similar things that he was doing and was comfortable with, but also has these other things that are proven to work in the NFL.
Right.
Because you saw how that worked with him this year before he got injured. So implement some of that with Mariota, because Mariota's got a great head on his shoulders. He's a great athlete. He's been injured all year and he's been playing through it. So like, imagine him next year healthy with a better offensive scheme around him. Like that Titans team could be even better. So,
well, especially now that they've moved on, or seemingly moved on from DeMarco Murray.
dude, if that wasn't a parting gift to DeMarco Murray, I don't know what
Yeah.
was. Dude put up 156 yards rushing. Like,
Yeah,
DeMarco Murray's not staying.
Derrick Henry couldn't be stopped. I mean, that guy was. He's an amazing running back specimen.
Mm-hmm.
He's so massive,
Mm-hmm.
but he can but he's got a lot of speed as well. He's really a fun running back to watch. There's a reason why everybody's been so, especially in fantasy circles, so high on this guy as, somebody to target in, fantasy drafts, or I'm sorry, what's it, dynasty drafts and stuff like that. Because he has insane value. I mean, Heisman winner, broke records at Alabama. He's 6'1", 230 pounds, and he runs a 4.4.
Mm-hmm.
That's ridiculous, man. The guy's insane. I can't wait to watch him next year as the lead back with no competition in the backfield. That guy he's gonna be awesome for them. He's gonna be what they need him to be.
Yeah, he's really the guy there. And DeMarco Murray will most likely, he'll end up on a team that doesn't have, number one guy set. He'll probably go to a place like probably Denver.
Or even a place like Tampa Bay.
Yeah, he could go to Tampa Bay. That would probably be reasonable. Maybe even maybe Seattle might take a look at him too, just because they might want a guy that can just handle a lot of carries, So, I mean, who knows? But
I don't really want him in Seattle.
I don't really either. But
it wouldn't be the worst thing ever. It'd be an upgrade over Eddie Lacy.
I would take a proven veteran over Eddie Lacy and practice squad running backs. So, sorry, I got really close to the mic there. I didn't realize how close it was to my face.
Yeah, I watched your little light down there turn red.
Yep. Yeah. So speaking of really cool running backs to watch, the Saints and Panthers played this weekend as well, and that was actually, it ended up being a pretty good game. But I don't think. Well, I'll tell you, the Saints won 31-26, and that sounds like it was pretty close. And the Panthers kind of came roaring back a little bit in the second half, trying to get a comeback going.
Panthers roaring. I see what you did there.
Roar. So, they tried as they could, but I don't think anyone watching the game doubted that the Saints were going to win. I mean, the Saints were just moving up and down the field easily. I mean, just Drew Brees was destroying them. They didn't get much of the run game going, but when you're
nothing in the run
as
game.
we have said all year, when your backup plan is a Hall of Fame quarterback, oh no, now our Hall of Fame quarterback has to throw it. Whatever will we do? There wasn't anything going on there that was going to stop Drew Brees. And Cam Newton, he tried, but he
had a good game. He didn't have any turnovers.
Yeah, he had a good game, but I mean, this is what you're going to get with Cam Newton on his good days. You're going to get this pretty solid performance, and you're going to get, some of this fire that he has, but when things are not going his way, he just isn't this elite guy, Yeah,
and I think some of it has to do with coaching too, because we haven't seen more development from Cam Newton. He's kind of always been the same player, even from his rookie year. He's always done the same.
Yeah,
he's always done the same things.
He's the same guy,
and you want to see some development, and we haven't seen any. And I think that comes down a lot to coaching. And I think the Panthers finally realized that. They fired their quarterback coach, and I believe they also fired their offensive coordinator as well. So the next year will kind of be a good year for us to evaluate Cam, because he's going to get a new quarterback coach in, new offensive coordinator that's not going to call the worst plays of all time.
Yeah.
And the offense is just it's like they play 50% of their offense, probably more than that, behind the line of scrimmage. It's like screen pass, dump
true.
off, screen pass, jet sweep, run this, run that. And they take a shot down the field and it's like, it has to be some contested ball. It's like you throw it to Funchess and he's covered. You throw it on to Greg Olsen. He's got a guy on him. There's no guys getting open. It's just like, well, let's hope our big, tall dudes can make the mismatch.
And everyone wants to blame the fact that the Panthers don't have, elite wide receivers. They don't have really any good wide receivers behind Funchess and Greg Olsen. And that is true to an extent. They certainly struggle with their receiving core right now.
Definitely.
But that's what you get when you trade away one of your proven guys. Like, you didn't need to trade away Kelvin Benjamin. You didn't get that much for him in return. So I don't know.
I just don't think I don't think they planned on re-signing him, and so they wanted to get any value they could out of him, and they didn't want to lose him to just free agency.
If you're going for a playoff run, I mean, you might want to keep the guy around and kind of, just kind of take it. I don't know, but really good quarterbacks are going to. It doesn't matter who the receivers are. If they're on the NFL level, they're going to find a way to make these receivers work. Yeah. And you saw it this year with the Giants and Eli Manning. And Eli Manning isn't even like a super crazy good quarterback, but like,
well, he didn't even really make it work.
He didn't make it work, but with the guys that he had who were unproven, just guys that were on practice squads, like, he put up okay numbers in a decent amount of his games. And like, Cam Newton obviously put up better numbers with pretty bad wide receivers, but like, you can't blame all of these wide receivers for Cam Newton's lack of production. You have guys like, I think what really needs to have more credit is the New Orleans defense. Okay. Like, they shut down Devin Funchess pretty much all game until they started getting some sort of a comeback going. And then, he got a little bit more open, but like, I mean, Marshawn Lattimore is insane. That dude, I was just watching him every time the Panthers were on the field. I was watching him as much as I could because he's awesome. But like, you have to give that Saints defense more credit because they came to play, and even though they gave up 26 points, they were getting after him, and you could see it on the last meaningful play of the game. It's like 4th and 20 or whatever, and Saints just come out and sack Cam Newton.
Von Bell.
Yeah, dude. Like, they came to play, and like, my point is, Cam Newton has to take responsibility, and he doesn't. He pouts and then walks away from the media and then just doesn't talk about it.
He actually had a pretty good reaction to this game. It was he wasn't being a Patty crybaby. He actually reacted pretty well.
Yeah, I didn't see his reaction to this one, which is surprising because they usually post that kind of stuff all over the place on social media. So I was surprised.
Well, it's because it wasn't an outburst. That's why you don't hear about it. Yeah, I think Saints are easily favored in the AFC, or sorry, in the NFC the rest of the year, or the rest of the playoffs.
I wouldn't say easily favored.
I mean, they don't really have a weakness on their team. Yeah, they got shut down in the run game, but I mean, Carolina's been doing that all year anyways.
I mean, I think it's hard to say that they're easily favored with the Vikings still in the playoffs.
I guess the Vikings did win, but I mean, what's Case Keenum's playoff experience? I mean, look at the Falcons and Rams. I mean, the Rams were like scoring points all season, making defenses look silly, and then they get beat by the Falcons, who struggled all year.
But when they played tested teams, things were a little bit different. When they played Seattle that first time, not the second time. Second time was much different than the first time, okay? First time, our team was fully healthy, okay? Seattle was healthy. It was early in the season. Like, there weren't a lot of issues yet. And they only put up 10 points, okay? And they didn't play after that. They had a pretty tough schedule after that, but a lot of those games were their losses. The Eagles game they lost, and the Eagles aren't even really that tested, but they were proving to really be blowing people out all year.
Right.
And when they played the Vikings, they got shut down pretty bad.
They got beat by 10 against the Vikings. The playoffs are a whole nother thing, man. When it comes to the playoffs, it's all about experience. Drew Brees has been here before. These Sean Payton has been here before. These guys know how to prepare and get ready for this. Mike Zimmer, not so much. He's with the Bengals. And then Case Keenum has been all over the place. And that whole team lacks experience. They make up for that lack of experience with an amazing defense. I guess it's hard to say that they're easily favored. I guess I agree with you there, but I think the Saints are definitely the top dog right now in the NFC, just with how they finished out their year and how they played in this game against the Panthers. I mean, it's going to be a tough matchup, that's for sure, but I think Drew Brees can get it done. Well,
I do too. I just can't bring myself to say that the Saints are really that much more favored, just because, I mean, the Saints have a great defense and they have a really good offense, but I mean, that Vikings defense is really good. Like, they have a couple of all-pro guys back there with, you got Harrison Smith, and then you got that nasty D-line. I mean, that D-line is crazy, dude.
Not to mention Xavier Rhodes.
Yeah, Xavier Rhodes is crazy. That guy's been so good all year. Like, it's just, you can't count the Vikings out ever. Like,
I mean, they're great across the board. The only spot I'm worried about is Case Keenum. I'm
not even worried about Case Keenum in this game.
He's played really well all year, but I mean, against Saints, who have a really, really good defense, no playoff experience, and the atmosphere of the game, and I don't know, man, it's going to be tough for him. You never know how it's going to affect these guys who haven't been there before. Drew Brees is going to play it just like he has every other game. Man, I'm just concerned about the Vikings offense. That's the only thing.
I'm concerned about their running backs. That's really the only position I'm concerned about for them. Their offensive line scares me a little bit, just because the Saints, they do blitz quite a bit because they have these corners that are just shutting people down. So,
and Cam Jordan's ridiculous.
Yeah, Cam Jordan's really good. So, you have to account for that, certainly. But I think that the Vikings, I think they're just still the favorite. If I'm being honest. I think they have just a little edge right now before the games start. I think they have a little bit of an edge going in.
Well, that's the beauty of this sport, is you never know what's going to happen, and so everybody is entitled to their opinion because anything can happen. Mm-hmm. I mean, it could go either way. I mean, what if the Eagles get hot? What if Nick Foles decides to go,
7 more touchdowns?
7 more touchdowns. Yeah. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? But let's get away from that game for a minute and talk about the Rams. We mentioned them for a second. The Rams lost to the Falcons 26-13. Kind of for the same kind of reason we were just talking about. The Rams don't have any playoff experience. They're a really young team with a young head coach. And the Falcons, I mean, they're defending NFC champs. They went to the Super Bowl last year and almost beat the Patriots. If they had just
should have beaten the Patriots.
Should have, if they had just called some better plays. But I mean, Steve Sarkisian finally called a good game. I mean, they took advantage of the Rams, and when you go up against a defensive coordinator like Wade Phillips, you're gonna have a bad time most of the time. Wade Phillips is a great defensive coordinator. He's got a great mind for it. And Sarkisian just called a really good game. I mean, the Rams offense got pretty much shut down outside of Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley still had, over 100 scrimmage yards, and I think he had 107 rushing yards and 10 receiving yards. But
yeah, if anything, the Rams didn't give Todd Gurley the ball enough. They were.
That's what happens when you get behind, though.
Yeah, but even early in the game, Todd Gurley had, I think, 10 carries for, I think it was 47 yards at the time. And then they just didn't give him the ball for like 2 straight drives. And then they gave him 1 carry in 2 drives. And that was it. And I understand he's a dual threat, but like when you're averaging almost 5 yards a carry, like you just wear down their defense, and don't force this Jared Goff second-year guy to try to carry you against a team that is better in the secondary than they are in their front seven.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I should say though, and this isn't even like the secondary Falcons fan bias, like that Falcons defensive line has developed really well over the last 3 years. Like they have gotten some serious talent on there. Grady Jarrett has been really good in the middle for them. He's been awesome. Adrian Claiborne has turned into a great pass rusher. And it's funny because all these guys they got, Courtney Upshaw, Derek Shelby, they're on the bench now because all these other guys stepped up when they got injured. And so these free agent acquisitions are just, they're just there chilling and, on the sideline. So that Falcons defense really has shown a lot of maturity and grown up a lot, and I think it's built in a way right now that works just kind of perfectly for the people they're matching up against. They have two good corners for man coverage, at least. Robert Alford's not great in zone coverage, but he's good man to man. Desmond Trufant's all around a fantastic cornerback. And then you have guys like Keanu Neal who come in and lay the smack down. So I think for the teams that they're going against that are these, teams that rely heavily on their wide receivers right now, like they're going to match up well against them. And that worked well against the Rams where they're relying on their receivers, but none of them are like elite tier receivers. Robert Woods is trying to get his way in
150 yards.
Yeah, he still had a good game. He
had more than half of Jared Goff's
I think
entire
next year
yards.
could be a really big year for Robert Woods. But right now, none of those three guys are quite in that upper tier wide receivers yet, and so you still have good matchups with your corners and your secondary. So I think the Rams. I think you're right about this just being where the Rams just had no playoff experience, and like nobody on that team had playoff experience, and Falcons just came off of a season where they went to the Super Bowl and had a chance to win it. And, so they have that fire still because they're like, no. We want to get back there and we want to prove ourselves.
Well, they've been the butt of like every freaking meme for this whole year.
No kidding. So I think that the Rams will be a force to be reckoned with for sure for the next long time. As long as they keep around Sean McVay and Jared Goff continues to develop, I think that they're going to be around for a while.
Yep. Well, I appreciate your perspective as a Falcons fan. That kind of gives some good insight.
Yeah.
Really quick, we'll just go over the Jags and Bills game. It's a pretty terrible game. I mean...
Yeah. I watched about 5 minutes of it.
Yeah. I mean, Tyrod didn't even break 150 passing yards. I think he had like 134 and eventually got hurt. And then they put Peterman in and he had 2 turnovers and 4 snaps.
As he does.
Yeah. Blake Bortles didn't even have 90 passing yards. He had 87 passing yards and 88 rushing yards. He's the team's leading rusher.
Yeah, all of the analysis after the game was just people making jokes about it. They were all joking like, maybe Blake Bortles should just be a running back. Like 88 rushing yards. It's just like, that's how bad that game was. There wasn't anything to analyze. It's basically just like, okay, Jalen Ramsey's really good.
Insane good.
Their defense is really good. That was all there was to analyze, and which isn't much of analysis because they've been really good all year. So like, what is the analysis? Boy, the Bills really didn't belong in the playoffs, and as awesome as it was to finally see them get in, this is not the team that's going to do it. Like,
well, yeah, I mean, like, it was great for Bills fans. They didn't give a crap whether they won or lost. I mean, of course they'd prefer to win, but I don't think they went in expecting to win. But yeah, I mean, we said it last week, they benefited off of an easy AFC this year. I mean, Andrew Luck went out, Deshaun Watson went out. I mean, there are so many just like injuries in the AFC, and Chargers got off to a slow start. They should have been in the playoffs. I think they would have put up a much better fight against the Jags. if they had been able to win just one more game early in the year. I think they would have done a lot better against the Jags. Yeah. But obviously it doesn't matter anymore. But still, I mean, they just benefited off of a lot. A lot had to go right for them to win or to get into the playoffs in the first place. But then once you get there, those teams outside of like the Seattle Beastquake game, I mean, that's another example of a team that really wasn't supposed to be there.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, there's a Cinderella story here and there. Oh, they won that game against the Saints, and that's great. Then they proceeded to get destroyed by the Bears in the next game. I actually remember that game. I remember, I think, I don't know if you and I were watching it, or I don't remember what happened, but I remember seeing that the Seahawks won against the Saints and thinking it was insane. And then I think this was before I actually really started watching football, but then
this was the season right before.
Yeah, because that was in 2011.
It was the season. It was the 2010-2011 season. So that was the season right before we got like super into it. That was the year where we started to get into it. And we started paying more attention to things and started to understand the game a lot more. And then that next year, it worked out perfectly for us because we were into football. We had already been into the Ducks for a while, and so we wanted to get into NFL. And we already liked the Seahawks. And then the Seahawks got us the steal of the draft in every round that year.
Yeah.
And just built this awesome young team for us to kind of grow up with.
Well, yeah, and they had 11 wins in 2012.
So that was
went to the divisional round with Atlanta. That was good stuff.
Yeah. And you can say 2012 bandwagon fans, but we were already into football before that season. It was just that was the year that we decided to it was before the season even started. It wasn't at the end of the season where all of a sudden we're in the playoffs and then we're fans. It was we had already been watching the Seahawks for a couple of years. We just weren't super into it. And
I think at that point we were more into college football. Yeah. We had watched the Ducks for a couple of years. They went to the national championship in 2011, and
that was the 2010
or 2010. Yeah, sorry.
Oh wait, no, 2010. Yep. Because the year before that, we went to the Rose Bowl with Jeremiah Masoli.
Got pounded by Terrell Pryor.
State, yep.
Yeah, so that's fun. Any Hoosiers. Yeah, but yeah, so we'd already been following, but we just preferred college football because for some reason we thought it was better.
Because we didn't understand how intense every play is. We just
we were just
score.
Oh, scoring points. The Ducks put up 60 points a game. This is awesome to watch. I'll watch blowouts all day. I don't care as long as they're scoring points. But it wasn't really. And then it was 2012. We kind of got into the intricacy of the game and appreciated defense. Which there was a lot of in this Bills and Jags game, which ended with a score of 10-3. Bills are out of the out of there. I'd like to see the Bills. I think they'd get a lot of fan support if they ended up signing Andy Dalton when he becomes a free agent someday. I think that he would be
until he leads them to a 6-10 record and nothing happens.
Or leads them
to a Super Bowl,
to a wild card, and they lose again for 3 consecutive years.
Then they'd be like, look, dude, Andy Dalton, his first year got us to the playoffs. GOAT Buffalo Bills player.
He'd never pay for a drink in
Thurman
New York
Thomas,
ever again.
Who's that guy? Andy Dalton's the GOAT.
Oh, man. Okay, so that was all those games for the wild card. I guess we should just really quick mention that Alabama won a freaking national championship for the 5th time in 9 years.
Woohoo.
Yay. Nick Saban has pretty much cemented himself as the best college football coach of all time.
Yeah.
Especially playing in the era that he's playing in. I mean, there's lots of guys that, even Bear Bryant, the coach for Alabama, I mean, they played when, there was only a few teams that really invested in football. It really wasn't now there's 100 teams.
Every eligible school is please give us a good football team.
Yeah, even guys Purdue or Northwestern. These random schools,
basketball schools.
Yeah, these schools that normally aren't, these like football schools. They're investing in football because it makes them money. Number one, and number two, that's actually really pretty much it. But so that leaves a lot of competition, and now there's like an 80 scholarship limit where there wasn't that before. So yeah, Nick Saban has definitely cemented himself. That game against Georgia was crazy. I don't know how much of it you saw or if you saw any of it.
I didn't get the chance to watch it.
But Georgia was up for a while. And then at halftime, they switched quarterbacks.
Right. Now, I heard all about the storyline of the game. I saw highlights and stuff.
Yeah, so obviously, they won on the Hail Mary, and that was unacceptable by Georgia.
I don't call it a Hail Mary, but it was...
It was a Hail Mary because on the other side, there was 3 guys running down the field. It was just like a Hail Mary in Madden. There's 3 guys on the right and then the one guy isolated. But
you just call that a verticals play.
Well, yeah, but it was Hail Mary. They were gonna get if they had covered the guy that was on his own. If they had covered him,
DeJounte Smith.
I don't know his name, but then he would have just chucked it into the group of 3 dudes that are standing over in the end zone. But they had a busted coverage on a cover 2 with one guy over there. Come on.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Anyways.
It was a great throw though. That
is an absolute dime.
Guy, like, that was an awesome throw.
So here's something you might not know. That Tua guy went to the same high school as Marcus Mariota. And
I didn't know that.
Apparently was waiting for a scholarship offer from the Ducks.
Yep.
All they had to do was offer.
Yeah, dude.
Mark Helfrich is still hurting the program to this day.
Yep.
I guess Taggart, when he came in, he made a last-second pitch to Tua, but his dad had already gotten a new job in Alabama, so they were ready to move over there. So that kind of sucks. We ended up getting Braxton Burmeister instead.
Yeah, people were, after that game, there was a lot of Oregon fans like, and to think we could have had that guy just by giving him a call. Could have just been like, you want to come play for us, right? Okay, cool. Like, that would basically be the extent of that recruiting. And
last year that's insane.
I can't believe we got Burmeister. Oh my gosh.
Can you imagine how our year would have gone?
Oh God.
With a competent quarterback while Herbert was out?
Oh, man.
I mean, who knows? He might have beaten Herbert out for the job.
Well,
no, probably not. I'm just kidding. I'm getting a little too hot takey here.
Yourself.
But
next thing you know, you're going to start calling him the left-handed Russell Wilson.
I'm sure there's already people talking about it. But
there is. That's the joke. Colin Cowherd did a whole thing about it.
Oh my God.
He's a left-handed Russell Wilson. Colin Cowherd.
Oh, I actually listened to that. And that was the only thing he said, though. He didn't like go on a big spiel about it. He just said,
there was a lot of people that did, though. And they were just like, is it going to be one of the greatest Alabama players of all time? And it's like, okay, maybe. Okay, but like, I understand you have to like exaggerate because it's your job and stuff, but like, oh my God. Like,
yeah, he literally,
calm down a little bit.
That second half was the only meaningful snaps he took all year.
Yeah.
He took snaps.
Yeah.
They just weren't meaningful. They put him in when they were getting blown out. They put him in every time.
Pretty sure he started at least one game this year.
He didn't start any games this year. Positive, because I read all about it.
Okay.
He didn't start any games this year. He came in for mop-up duty. The difference was, and why a lot of people were clamoring for him to start, was because they'd put up, 30 points in the first half. The opposing team would score 0 because their defense is ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And then they'd put in the backup and they'd continue scoring points. Yeah. And everybody was like, wow, this guy's ridiculous. A much better passer than Jalen Hurts. Hurts isn't that good. Yeah. I thought it was like blasphemous that he got, even consideration for the Heisman his freshman year. That was just ridiculous. Anyways, so Alabama's co-national champions with UCF. Man, I love that, dude.
I do too. Dude,
like, who cares,
Alabama
right?
fans are so mad about it. They're so tired of hearing about it, but it's hilarious because
They're just
because
trolling
the
everyone.
state of Florida went so into it. They were just like the governor was just like, I hereby announce them to be the national champions as recognized by the state of Florida. Like, it was so funny. Like, they had a championship parade and everying. It was so
Why not,
awesome.
man? I mean,
they did get robbed. Like, they got robbed of a playoff spot.
And like, in all reality, like who determines who the national champion is? This NCAA, who's just kind of been given this power to determine that. I mean, who cares? It's a goddamn sport. If they want to claim a national championship, whatever, man. It's gonna be on the internet forever. I mean, but I mean, like, what does it really affect? I mean, Alabama still gets a giant ass trophy. They still get the recognition for it. I mean, it's just like, just let them have their fun. I mean, I'd love to see like Battle Royale and see UCF go up against Alabama. That'd be great. But
I mean, that'd be pretty sweet. It's just kind of one of those things where, like, I know this is an NFL podcast mostly, but
it says
whatever.
Philbrook football
it's
podcast.
Football, okay, like. I heard someone say before the national championship game, I'm not even sure if, they were talking about how good Alabama has been, and they say, I'm not even sure if they really wouldn't even be able to, like, I bet you they could probably put up an okay fight against the Cleveland Browns at this point. And it's like, people have made that argument so many times within the last, like, 7 years for Alabama, and
the past decade since Nick Saban's been there.
And every single time it becomes stupider and stupider. It's like, okay, we get it. You think this really good college team could put up this really good fight and hold their own against the Browns. Don't. Okay.
Are you kidding me? Freaking Tua is a 19-year-old kid.
Yeah. Like, there's no way. I bet you they could hold their own in the first quarter. I bet you
they wouldn't even hold their own.
I bet you they could keep it. I bet you they could keep it within 2 scores because the Browns would score probably twice in the first quarter. And then in the second quarter, they'd be tired because they're like, oh my God, we're having to defend these NFL level. Can you imagine Alabama's corners trying to cover Josh Gordon?
Or their tackles trying to cover Myles Garrett?
Yeah. Like,
they couldn't even do it. I mean, the only way they're able to, but I mean, it's not even just Myles Garrett now. They also have Emmanuel Ogbah. They have Danny Shelton. They have, these guys that
CJ Mosley, Scott, what's his face in the middle?
Nate Orchard. Okay.
They are an NFL team.
Yeah, they're an NFL team.
They are all pros.
All of these dudes that are on this team are guys that were like the best player at their school.
Yep.
When they graduated or
and
left for the NFL.
Probably like 8 of those guys from that team are going to be in the NFL next year. Not all 53.
And that's great and all.
Yeah.
To have that many players on a college team that go to the NFL, but
they would make Deshaun Kaiser look like a god.
Maybe, hey, you know what? Maybe to get his confidence back, that's what they need to do. They just need to schedule a game against Alabama.
Yeah, you know what? Let's do it. Let's stoop to their level.
Let Kaiser, ball out against them. Except knowing Kaiser, he'd probably do terrible anyways.
He'd find a way.
I mean, none of the quarterbacks they have on the roster were like amazing college football quarterbacks either. I mean,
put Kessler in there, they'd be fine.
Kessler was
he'd get it done against them.
Only because he's like, they could just dink and dunk all day. You know
how much time he'd have to throw, dude? Like, Cleveland's offensive line would just be laughing at these guys.
I'd be okay with Kevin Hogan.
Joe Thomas would be like tickling those guys from Alabama. He'd just be like, you can't get past me.
True.
Even injured, he'd go out there and block all 5 of them by himself.
Yeah, I mean, and Isaiah Crowell coming back to...
That'd be pretty funny.
Get out the pizza Lunchables. God, Crow's got a feast. Anyways, yeah, so that's all good and all that kind of stuff. Bunch of players declared for the draft, of course, and then the season's over. And I guess that's really it for that. I didn't even intend to really talk about college football that much, but I just really wanted to mention that and talk about how tired I am of Alabama, and I just can't wait for Nick Saban to retire. I just want it to happen so bad, so we can they've been in the playoffs every single year that the playoffs have been in, and they've won a championship 5 times out of the last 9 years.
They've been pretty scrutinized. They were pretty scrutinized this year, just because. I mean, like Nick Saban last year said, if you don't win your conference championship, you don't deserve a spot in the playoffs. And then this year,
look at that,
didn't win his conference championship, still somehow made it in the playoffs.
And then didn't Wisconsin win that conference, the Big Ten?
I can't remember. I remember Wisconsin having a pretty big loss towards the end of the year, but I don't remember if it was the championship or not.
Either way, man, they got screwed too.
Wisconsin got pretty screwed. Ohio State, I think, got kind of screwed, and then
had 2
obviously
losses.
Yeah, but I think out of all of them, I think UCF got pretty screwed.
Definitely,
UCF should have been in there.
Yeah,
and you can talk about strength of schedule all you want, but
but they blew out everyone.
They blew out everyone, and don't even tell me that teams like Alabama had a harder schedule.
And they played some good teams. I mean, they played USF, which was a ranked team.
Mm-hmm.
They also played Florida Atlantic, which was a good team this year. They also ended up ranked. They won 10 games.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they beat
Auburn.
And then they beat Auburn, yeah. And so by transitive property,
by deductive reasoning,
they win. Since Auburn beat both teams in the national championship game. But anyways, UCF definitely got robbed. I can't really blame Scott Frost for leaving to a Power 5 school because, I mean, he did literally everything he could to win. Waste on every team you play against, go undefeated. As a G5, you still don't get in.
Yeah.
The committee's messed up, man. It's terrible. But anyways, let's steer away from college football.
Okay.
We can kind of talk more about that when the season's over. We can talk about some, NFL draft stuff if we want. College dudes. There's a lot of coaching changes, and I really just quickly want to go over the Seahawks coaching changes. I mean, all things considered, this is probably now the most accomplished season that the Seahawks have had since they won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Didn't get to the playoffs, but got rid of the cancer that was holding this team back.
Yeah.
Darrell Bevell got fired, the offensive coordinator. He's been here since 2010. They also fired
Tom Cable. And
I guess not rumor, but what they're saying is that, Chris Richard is free to pursue another job if he wants it. They're not firing him. They're pretty much telling him.
He interviewed with the Colts.
Yeah,
for
you can
head coach.
leave on your own terms or stick around, I guess. And he could get the Colts job. I'm sure that they'll probably get there. There's some other coaching stuff going on too. Matt Patricia, the defensive coordinator of the Patriots, interviewed with the Giants and the Lions, and it seems to be leaning more towards the Giants. Yeah. That's going to leave the Lions looking for a head coach. Maybe they decide to give Chris Richard a call and get him an interview. But he did interview for the Colts job, so they could give him that. I don't really think he's head coach worthy. I don't really think he's that great of a defensive coordinator.
Agreed.
But whatever, man. If it gets him off our team, I don't really care. So, we'll see what happens with that. I'm really interested to see who they bring on as our offensive coordinator. O-line coach, I'm really not even that worried about. The only reason everybody talks about Tom Cable is because he's really bad. But I mean, who's the offensive coordinator? Or who's the O-line coach for the Jacksonville Jaguars? Mm-hmm. Who knows? Who's the O-line coach? Who's the O-line coach for the freaking Minnesota Vikings? I want that guy.
Yeah.
He turned a line that was worse than the Seahawks last year.
A line that has Mike Remmers on it.
And it did have TJ Clemmings. They got rid of him because he's god awful. But I mean, still, they turned around that line in a year. Mm-hmm. I want that guy. Can Paul Allen just force money down his throat and just have him come to us? That'd be great.
Yeah, man. Like it was really nice to see as a Seahawks fan to just finally see these two guys that we have been like begging them to get rid of for years, and it finally happened. And a lot of people are calling for Pete Carroll to be gone, but I think
that's ridiculous.
I think that's ridiculous. I mean, if it weren't for Pete Carroll, we wouldn't have even had that Super Bowl. Okay, like
yeah, and I know you can't like live off of past glories, but I want to see what he does with when he brings some new guys in.
Mm-hmm.
Get a new, they had this whole. He wanted to run the ball. He wanted to have this like amazing running game, and everything was going to be good. And now, I think they want to transition into a passing team. I mean, Russell Wilson's obviously elite. He's obviously capable of carrying this team without a running game in most weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Give him any sort of competent running game, and this team wins 11 games every year.
Yeah.
So we'll obviously stay. We'll stay posted on that. The coaching changes there. There's coaching changes all around the league, but don't have time to really talk about every single one of them. And frankly, I really don't even care. Like there's some teams I care about. I mean, freaking John Gruden got hired by the Oakland Raiders. Wow, splashy.
And if you're watching this and haven't heard about that somehow, what is wrong with you? How did you stumble across this and not hear about John Gruden?
John Gruden also said that he's going to call all the plays, so I'm sure we can expect lots of Spider 2Y banana.
Dude, it's going to be super monkey ball heaven in
yeah,
Oakland.
Dude. So yeah, there's that, and Nagy got the head coaching job with the Bears, so John Fox is out of a job. I mean, there's lots of coaching going on, or coaching changes going on all around the league. So until everything's kind of settled out, then we can kind of talk about all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, let's get into our divisional matchup games.
All I'm gonna say, last piece of news.
Yeah, go ahead. I gotta pull it up anyways.
Kirk Cousins reportedly very interested, should the opportunity arise, to sign with the Browns. Okay, so that's all I have to say about that.
Thanks, Colin.
Yep.
All right. We're gonna talk about the divisional round here. So let's start with the NFC matchups. We have the Falcons taking on the Eagles, and the Saints taking on the Vikings. Let's go with the Falcons and Eagles first. Obviously, the Eagles are 13-3. However, they lost Carson Wentz down the stretch and are going to be starting Nick Foles. The Falcons went 10-6. However, they played in a very tough division that sent 3 teams to the playoffs, which could make their record worse than what their team talent was. Mm-hmm. And I think we saw that the way they were able to keep the Rams in check, and the way they finished off the Panthers at the end of the year. So, what is your take on this? Wow, that's so crazy to me, man. I'm sorry. I'm just looking at the season leaders. Carson Wentz had 3,296 passing yards. Matt Ryan had 4,000. Matt Ryan had 20 touchdowns, and Carson Wentz had 33.
Yeah,
man, he was putting up some freaking numbers.
Yeah,
man.
Well, that's
ridiculous.
why he was really in the lead for MVP for the longest time. But as far as my take goes for this game, I do think that it's going to be pretty similar to the game against the Rams, in the sense that you have an Eagles team that has I guess a little bit more playoff experience, but like not really. So the Falcons are still the more tested team here. They're still really talented, and they have a good starting quarterback. Nick Foles,
good backup.
He's a good backup, but I do not. After the way the Falcons showed up against the Rams last week, I'm gonna have a really hard time seeing the Eagles pull away against the Falcons with Nick Foles at quarterback.
The Eagles are also going to be missing Brandon Graham. He's out for this game, so
which doesn't help because he's maybe their best player on defense. So
pretty significant argument can be made for Fletcher Cox.
Right. They're both pretty good.
They're both really, really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, Brandon Graham's really, really good. So they're definitely gonna be missing him. He's really,
Fletcher
really good. Cox. Fletcher. I hardly know her. I don't know. Fletcher Cox.
All right. Yeah, that certainly makes a big impact for their defense. I think the bigger matchup is the fact that they have even worse corners than the Rams did. Mm-hmm. So that's going to make it even harder for them to guard guys like Julio Jones. And
oh yeah, and I mean,
the Falcons are just a really potent offense, and like I said, their defense has really been growing up down the stretch this year. Like, I really think the Eagles are going to struggle because they're going to probably stack the box a lot, force Nick Foles to beat them. And like I said, they've got corners that are really good in man coverage. They have a strong safety in Keanu Neal who can come up and get in the box and make those big time tackles. And then you have these insane fast linebackers and Deion Jones and Devondre Campbell, and then Duke Riley. There's so much talent on this Falcons team, and it's all coming together at kind of the right time for them. And the Eagles are still in this kind of la-la land of, well, they have a really good record, so we don't want to count them out. But when you look at that roster,
well, they're missing. They're also missing Jalen Mills, who started for them this year, and Sidney Jones is questionable, who was their rookie draft pick out of Washington. So it's. Yeah, this is going to be, the Falcons probably have the easiest two first matchups of any team in the playoffs this year.
Yeah.
They went against the Rams, who are inexperienced, and then now they're going against a beat up Eagles team, missing their MVP front runner essentially, which is fine. I mean, that's just how it works out sometimes. Yep. Nothing to discredit the Falcons. I mean, they just need to take advantage of the opportunity they're given.
Yep.
And they can coast to the NFC Championship game. So I'm going to take the Falcons this one. They're favored by 3 points. I think it's going to be further than that. I think they're going to at least win by a touchdown.
If the Falcons just play mistake free as far as turnovers go, just like they did against the Rams, then I think they win this game pretty handily.
Okay, and the other NFC matchup, the Sunday game with the Saints versus the Vikings. Now, this is the one that we were talking about.
Yeah. It's going to be crazy.
We kind of talked about it already. I'm going to go with the Saints just because I love Drew Brees and I want him to get a ring so bad. Another one. I want him to have another one so bad. It finally feels like the Saints have put it all together. I feel like Drew Brees is just going to will this team to victory. I think he's got that leadership quality to him and just that skill to make it happen, man. I was watching him make these throws that were just so absurdly accurate and just in the exact perfect spots. There was one where he threw it. I think it was, I don't remember who, I think it was Michael Thomas he threw it to. Defenders standing in front of him as they're running, and he just throws it right behind Thomas, just enough that Thomas is able to move his body and reach behind him and grab it. But it's just completely out of range of the defender. Knew that Thomas would be able to get that ball if he extended, and oh man, I was just blown away. I can't believe the accuracy that dude has.
Well, you've been doing it for that long and at that high level, that's. And when you're setting records every other year for the highest completion percentage in NFL history, that's what you're going to get from Drew Brees. So I don't want to discredit the Saints at all. I think that this game really could go either way. It's not out of the question.
I think this should be the NFC Championship game, honestly.
Yeah, these are the two teams. I think these are the two best teams in the NFC. Unless the Falcons blow out the Eagles by 40 points, and then maybe I have to say, all right, Falcons are turning it on. But Yeah, I think this right now is really the big matchup of the year. And I think that the Saints have all the talent to do it. And all it's going to take is for Drew Brees to not get any stupid turnovers, which he doesn't do a lot, but every now and then he has a game where he just slips up early and it kind of snowballs with him, and it doesn't happen very often because he's so good, but every now and then it happens, and if that starts to happen in this game, it's over. You cannot keep giving the Vikings turnovers. So we'll see what happens. I think the Saints have all the talent they need. And I think that the Vikings have proven themselves very, very, very capable of competing with whoever they go against. Even with Case Keenum at quarterback.
I mean, the Vikings already beat the Saints earlier this year, but like we keep saying, playoffs are completely different.
Yep. That was week 1.
Yeah.
So with Sam Bradford at quarterback.
Oh, yeah. That's Sam Bradford in his best, game of his career, essentially.
Yeah. So that game isn't a great testament of what's going to happen. So.
It is kind of poetic that they met in week 1 and now are meeting in the divisional round. How interesting is that?
It's pretty sweet.
Yeah, I definitely believe that the Vikings could win this game. There's no doubt in my mind that's a real possibility. I know I said earlier, I think the Saints. I still think that they're favorites, at least in my book, just because I love how balanced their team is. But the Vikings defense is like, I mean, it's on another level, man. They're definitely very elite and have they don't really have a hard time shutting guys down. So I'm pulling for the Saints just because, like I said, I like Drew Brees, but this game could definitely go either way.
Yeah, I like I said earlier, I personally give the edge to Minnesota. But yeah, it really could go either way.
All right, so the AFC matchups. I mean, does it really matter? I mean, Patriots against the Titans.
This one, not as much.
Yeah, I don't really see any reason why the Titans would be able to win this game.
Well, the only way they're going to be able to win this game is if they control the tempo and they control the clock. That's really going to be the only way they win. If they can just get Derrick Henry to consistently get good chunk runs and not force Marcus Mariota to just throw a million times, they have a chance. Patriots defense isn't great. Their pass rush still isn't great. They have James Harrison now, but great, you have one pass rusher now, and he's super old. He can't play every snap of the game. This defense still has trouble rushing the passer. The Titans have a really good offensive line. So offensively, if they can just not get any turnovers, I keep saying that for these teams, but it's that's really what bites these teams in the playoffs right now. That's been the killer, and that's what's kept so many of them out of the playoffs for so many years.
Yep.
So now that they're there, they have to cut down on turnovers, and that's really the only way the Titans can win, because the Patriots offense is going to be fine. The Titans defense is not good enough to stop the Patriots offense. So that's why they have to control the clock. They have to keep things the way that they want it. So that's the only way. But logically speaking, it's Patriots should win this game without any real problems.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, the Patriots are favored by almost 2 touchdowns. They're favored by 13.5 points.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I'd love to see the Titans win, just because, I mean, how great would that be for the Patriots to not be in the AFC Championship game?
Yeah, we can all wish,
But I don't think it's going to happen. I'm going to pick the Patriots to win this game with quite a bit of confidence. I mean, I love Mariota. He's my favorite Duck to ever play. I mean, I love that dude, and I think he deserves to win just because I think he's carried this team now, or at least tried to.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Don't see them winning. Patriots for sure.
I can see them winning. Patriots have choked a couple games here and there before, but it doesn't happen very much in the playoffs for them. So I think the Patriots probably win this game.
Yeah, I mean, there's like, I feel like ESPN is trying to like manufacture some kind of distraction for them, or something, and it's just like insane to me. I don't know that like there's all. Everybody's so obsessed with like this supposed turmoil going on in the Patriots like locker room and front office and all that kind of stuff, and it's like nothing has been verified.
Yeah,
it's all just like hearsay. I mean, it's
just to create noise.
Yep. So moving on to the other AFC matchup, the Steelers versus the Jaguars. Steelers are favored right now by 7.5. But I mean, hey, Jaguars have the best defense in the league this year.
Mm-hmm.
At least statistically. But the Pittsburgh Steelers have two of the best skill position players in the league with Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell. Mm-hmm. I don't know, man.
This is another game where playoff experience comes into play, and the Jaguars have none of it. Their quarterback has none of it, and it's really going to take some serious focus and discipline for their defense to shut down a tested Steelers team. I mean, this is a perennial playoff team in the Steelers that consistently go deep in the playoffs, and for the Jaguars to win, I mean, it would certainly help if Antonio Brown missed this game, but he's not going to. Like they're going to list him as questionable, but he's not questionable. Like he's been posting videos of him like working out and doing these practices. He's fine.
Right now, his status is out.
Really? There's no way he's out for this game.
It says he's out. It says Marquise Pouncey is out. Artie Burns is questionable, and Stephon Tuitt is also questionable. And for the Jags, it says Jalen Ramsey is questionable. I don't know why. TJ Yeldon is out. Mercedes Lewis is questionable. And then there's like some Blair Brown dude. He's a linebacker. He's questionable. And Jadon Mickens, wide receiver, is questionable.
That's surprising that Antonio Brown's listed as out. That seems weird. I was just hearing stuff earlier today about how like he's been looking fine and he plans to play. So I'll have to keep an eye out on that this week because that's really weird.
I'm kind of reading it right now.
Well, either way, while you're reading that, I do think if Antonio Brown doesn't play, that really boosts the Jaguars' chances. But you can't just assume that the Steelers are going to lose just because Antonio Brown isn't playing, because you still have to stop Le'Veon Bell, who is a nightmare to try to stop. That dude's just everywhere. He doesn't matter how many touches you give him. He's just going to keep chugging along. And their other wide receivers aren't scrubs either. Juju Smith-Schuster's had a great year, and Martavis Bryant kind of spotty, but he's picked it up more towards the end of the year. And Eli Rogers is an okay slot guy. So they still have talent in the receiving corps. Their receiving corps or whatever.
The receiving core.
Yeah. And, certainly it's easier for the Jaguars if, matchup wise, if Antonio Brown isn't out there, because then Jalen Ramsey can just focus on Juju and AJ Bouye can focus on Martavis or vice versa and call it good. But you can't count out Ben Roethlisberger and Le'Veon Bell, and you can't count out a defense that's not a total slouch defense either. I mean, the Steelers' defense has dropped off significantly since early in the season.
Well, since Shazier went out,
yeah,
pretty much.
But like, the Jaguars aren't some elite offensive team, so their receivers are like third, fourth string guys right now, and
their leading receiver on the year is Keelan Cole.
Yeah,
who
was on the practice squad. I think
nobody even knew who he was until week like 6, 7, maybe.
Like,
didn't even have 1,000 receiving yards. He had like 800.
Yeah. So they don't have some crazy elite offense. And, if they can just stop Leonard Fournette, I think that their defense should be fine. It's all about their offense just getting something from the Jaguars. So I'm gonna go with the Steelers because I think they're gonna have a really hard time stopping Le'Veon Bell. But you know, if they come in with a similar game plan that they had last time they faced the Jaguars, then they're screwed because
they lost 30-9.
Yeah. But I will say my theory about that game was that was right when Antonio Brown was basically calling them out like, hello, give me the ball more. Throw me the ball. What are you doing? Like, he was like, why am I not getting targets? And then they were like, well, fine, let's just throw it 1,000,000 times to you all game, and threw 5 picks because he's just constantly throwing it. So that's kind of my theory about that game. Just went too crazy with the passing game. But
yeah, I'm gonna take the Steelers. I think I don't know. I think the Jags are just too one-dimensional on offense. They really rely on the run game, and their pass game isn't all that great. Blake Bortles isn't very good. I mean, he's like, and I say that as a Seahawks fan, and like, yeah, like he torched the Seahawks, who were missing, you know, Cam Chancellor and Richard Sherman.
And that was before they really even had...
They didn't even have Byron Maxwell. So it's Shaq Griffin and... Shaq was out for that game too, I think. So it was Jeremy Lane and
Justin Coleman. Yep.
Yeah, that's bad. Anyways, Bortles isn't very good. I mean, he didn't even have 100 passing yards against the Bills, who are like pretty good on defense, but I mean, not any better than the Steelers are.
Yeah, they're on kind of like a similar level defensively. So
yeah, I don't expect the Jags to really be able to get anything going. And you're right, it comes down to playoff experience. Mike Tomlin and Ben Roethlisberger have been here before so many times. They've done this. This is where they expect to be every year. They expect to at least get this far. So,
if anything for the Jags, I think this is just kind of the game where they show what they're made of. If they can win this game, then okay, like we'll give them some credit. We'll say, okay, they made it to the AFC Championship game. This defense is obviously legit, and their offense can, it can keep up enough. But
and then they lose to the Patriots.
Yeah. Well, yeah, probably. So
that'd be insane if it ended up being the Titans and Jags.
That'd be insane if it ended up being the Falcons and Jaguars in the the title game.
Yeah, what the hell? That'd be insane.
Oh man. Oh, could you imagine Titans and Falcons?
Can you imagine like
that'd be crazy.
Yeah, that'd be crazy.
2 of the wild card teams is meeting in the Super Bowl after all of these like powerhouse teams. Oh my god. That'd be awesome.
It would be awesome. Yeah, so I think we're both picking the Steelers. Yeah. Okay, so that's all wrapped up and done.
Speaking of wrapped up and done, this podcast is pretty wrapped up and done.
Yeah, we're like, oh, let's make this one shorter, and then we just like talked about college football for 20 minutes.
We kind of just talked about Alabama for a while.
Yeah,
that's okay.
But hey, it's the Philbrook football podcast. So we talk about football on every level.
Dude, did you see that game down the road the other day?
I was thinking in my head about trying to make up some kind of like Pee-wee game score and be like.
The Little League Titans won against the big time ballers goats.
Led by Coach Bell.
Led by Coach...
Or Ball, I should say.
Yeah, I was about to say...
Bell? I'm thinking about Le'Veon Bell and Von Bell. And...
led by head coach Lasar Ball. Not to be confused with LeVar Ball. He just has a mustache and sunglasses.
Like Leon Sandcastle?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that's fun stuff. Anyways, well, hey, thanks for listening to the Philbrook Football Podcast. We'll be back again next week to go over the divisional round results and then talk about the conference championships. So we will be back same time next week. Thanks for listening. I said all that already. Mm-hmm. We're gone. We're out of here.
To the Philbrook.
We're done.
Football Podcast.
Every time. And then I gotta do the podcast at the end. Because nobody listens this far.